All right, we rolling. Welcome to the wasteland. I'm Freedom Phil. Like and subscribe, and always turn up the video speed. What I want to talk about? I'll talk about solar systems and just some of my thoughts. The easier it is to buy stuff and have it delivered, or to walk into the store, the better it is for me. If I got here earlier yesterday, I probably would have tried to set up a mailbox down here, a post office box. And that's essential if you want to deal with Amazon. And if you plan out your timing right to where it shows up, and then you go in it when you're going to go into town anyways, and it's there. So you just got to plan your order out. You get your stuff. But when it comes to solar, I've thought about this off and on. I know a lot of people give me shit for my Harbor Freight panels. But my two Harbor Freight panels produce enough power to do exactly what I need. I actually have two systems on this van. I want to go over my opinions on these. One system is an old style system. It's just one Harbor Freight panel on top of the clamshell. And that is a, hard system. Charge regulator, just a simple 100-watt charge regulator. And it has those weird little connectors. I don't know what they call them. The rubber connectors where they got, like you use on the back of a car. It's like that, but it's two plugs. It's got that with a, what do you call it? A lead acid battery. Now, I know deep cycle lead acid. I should have bought something bigger. And you're right. I agree with that. At the time, I was just building the system. And originally, I was building it to use it for the refrigerator. But the refrigerator is kind of a hog at times. And so it's one of those things where I imagine down here I could probably run it on there because of how good the sun quality is down here. But I mostly just use that hard system, the old school system for the TV. Because the TV only takes like under 10 watts. So even on a crappy shaded day, like a cloudy day in Washington, I will get power the moment there's a decent amount of light. I will start. There's times on my old system, the old hard system the second one I actually built on this, that in moonlight, I will get a recharge on. I know it doesn't sound like you get a lot, but you actually do get some power off of that. But that's a very simple system. Every part that I need, I can just walk into Harbor Freight and I can buy it. I love that convenience. So I buy extras just like anybody who's like a good farmer, like a good woodsman, like a good van lifer. You get some extra parts for what you're going to have to work on. That way you don't have to go back to town unless you want to. Now, when it comes to the solar generator system I've got, I was really excited about getting that because it's so simple. Anybody could fucking do it. And the thing I liked about, I do not like the what they call it, the bullet connector or whatever, that goes into solar generator on the EB3A. I do not like that. It's one of those things where that connector is just it's easy. It's easy. It doesn't really fall out, but it does have issues. It's just like I want something that locks in. And the newer solar generators, they're all that way. The thing is that I already have two panels for my solar generator. And if I was to get two more panels of the same type, I could hook it up to the current stuff I have. I'd have to buy a couple hardware kits to get the extensions. So, I could set up 4 panels, maybe an extra few hardware kits. But I could just set it up. Now, this is the thing I have when it comes to, for all that I do know about solar, and I don't know a massive amount, I don't know how you hook up panels in series or whatnot, but I do know, that like that old song, I don't know much, but it's like but I know I love you. So then maybe that's all I need to know. I know of my Harbor Freight system, they got that hub. And you take the hub and you got one exit port on it, and then you got all these little ports around it. And I could hook up 4 or more, maybe 6 or even more on that kind of octopus setup, I could hook up all those panels to it and then run it to a solar generator. As long as the solar generator has the connector I can connect it to it. So that's where I've thought about it, and I think they call it an M3 something or other. I can't remember. There's still stuff even I have to learn, but I know enough to make all the power I need in the middle of nowhere, even in places like Washington. With all the gray sky, I still have enough to run my fridge and all that, even with my little EB3A. And that thing's had some issues here and there, and I think some of it had to do with the humidity up north. Plus, it was left in the van last winter when I was in Idaho. So that was my fuck up right there. And this is the first time that I've recalibrated it ever. So that might have something to do with it too. But if I could just hook up, get the wire, the MT, whatever, hook up, attached to something that would work for, the solar generator for the Harbor Freight crap, I would probably just get a couple more Harbor Freight panels and hook them up to the 2 I've already got. And mind you, maybe I'd want 4 fresh panels, but then the question is what I would do with the 2 other panels. Maybe put them on the battle van or something. I don't know. The 2 old panels, put them on the battle van. But, the problem with doing that, I'll be honest, if the battle van was up there on lot 19, basically arrows shot away from the Henry's Fork of the Snake, I don't think it'd have a problem there because the snow would likely blow off the top of the roof. So I'd have to see what happens with the roof there. And then I could have a small solar system ready to go there. I could actually, if I had a solar system on the battle van, it would just be something simple for watching TV. Maybe doing that pretty much for watching TV, recharging devices. And, for me, that's really explain all I need. I like having a refrigerator. Luxury would be having 2 Bouge RV 30 liters. The other day, that damn 12-volt plug fucked up. And it fucked up a few times. And so I basically was trying to put it back together, and that little metal pin went flying off somewhere. I saw it going deeper into this, thing on the dash, where you store stuff. And I dug everything out and I never fucking found it. It's somewhere in the van, hopefully. But I ended up cutting the cord on that and memorizing which one was hot, which one was negative. I actually took the bike off the hood, took the battery, looked at the battery, and then pressed it and then did a test light. Okay, this is definitely the hot wire here. I put a piece of tape on it to signify that. And then I looked at the Bouge RV hookup, and I basically, rewired it. And I wired it to the 2-prong thing here, or the two plug thing that comes out of the solar generator. And I thought to myself for a minute there when I was at the store, I don't necessarily need its own plug. I mean, I bought an extra plug just in case. So if it goes out in the future, I could just fix it the correct way. But I don't need it because it's been running with that little system for a year or so now. And then, if I have to, I could just do the same thing over again if I want to. And now that fixed that problem. People say, well, what's the big deal? AC for everything uses less than AC. If you have a refrigerator running on AC, it is pissing away energy. It uses about double or more. Instead of using like 20, 30 watts, you're using 50 to 60. So, you could run max, 30 to 40 on DC for less than it takes to run eco mode on AC. So there's no way I'm going to put up with that shit. But that solar generator was giving me problems. It would run out of energy beforehand. So I did a reset on it and all that. And it's at 27% right now. I could have taken it lower. I actually thought about draining it as low as possible and then letting it recharge. But it's been a little finicky, so I was like, let's by the way, that's what I don't like about solar generators. They're one whole ass unit. They're one whole ass unit. And if something goes wrong, it's not like an old system. An old system is it's more knowledge to learn, but it's parts. It's like the older systems are like an older car. There's a certain number of parts. It's not that technical. It's easy to work on. It's easy to fix. You know, it's easy. And by the way, one of the rules on my channel, if you start talking some weird woo-woo language, you're the fuck out of here. Just so people know, I don't do that shit. You speak English or get the fuck out. And I'll play that game. You know, someone will be talking shit in some fucking other language. You'll be like, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, go blah, 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 blah. Some other place with your people. It's a big internet. Find some of your own. Or speak English, dumbass. Keep it simple, stupid. But yeah, I mean, you get the solar generator, and if something goes wrong on it that can't be fixed via the internet or troubleshooting, then you got to mail the damn thing to some other part of the country. And that's annoying. That's fucking annoying. You spend, by the way, the solar generator prices have gone down. You have some models that are, the biggest thing is universal pass-through charging, where it's not only charging, but it'll use the solar power first before it charges to run your shit. You can't have a solar generator without that. I mean, old school hard systems do that. But like you see these generators that hold about 2,000 watts for $600, like $500 to $600 now. I own that little EB only holds 260 some odd watts. So when you're getting to the technology now where you can spend, $500 to $1,000 and you got 2,000 to 3,000 watts, you get 4 panels, you're going to have all the power you need. And then the question is, really, this is what I look at. With 400 watts of solar and 2,000 watts of charge with a surge mode on your inverter, this is where they're really nice. A surge mode where you can go up to 4,000 watts for however long your battery lasts. If you're cooking something like in an air fryer, that's the shit, man. That's the fucking shit. So this is what I want to get into on this conversation. People in houses, they always do this crap where they're like, well, they say we need $30,000 or $50,000 in panels. We're just not doing that. No, motherfuckers. Here's what you really need. Hey, how you doing? What's up? You need to look at how you're using energy on your damn house, especially an off-grid unit. I get you got to be honest about this. You know the reason that most solar systems have to be over the top? Because of women. Not men, women. Women are why you need all this extra. Well, women want a turn dial existence. They're like, what do you mean turn dial? They just want to be able to turn the dial like the 1980s. No inconvenience, no nothing. And once you get used, it's like if you're ever part of a tribe or a culture, and if you think about it, you're like, yeah, where I grew up, we didn't do it that way. But once you get used to doing it a different way, you don't even think about it. You don't think, oh, it's so hard doing this or that. You just think, oh yeah, instead of using electricity like an electric stove, we just use propane. Instead of having an indoor kitchen, like say you live in the South, outdoor kitchen, baby, barbecues outside where the heat doesn't heat up your house, And people talk about, what about the North? Wood stoves, baby. You go out and people are like, then you got to go collect wood and you got to do this and that. And, but let me point this out about the collecting of the wood. You're already out there to go hunting, berry picking, mushroom picking. You come back with a load of wood. You go fishing, come back with a load of wood. And then come winter, you just, you go out there. I mean, some guys I run into. One old guy I hate wood stoves. I hate wood stoves. I'm like, man, I love them. There's no heat like wood heat, baby. You're up in the Northwest. If you're going to live in the Northwest, you gots to have a wood stove because the humidity around there, let me move around, adjust my arm's falling asleep. I'm actually in bed right now, just got this facing the out window outside the van. Otherwise you'd be hearing probably a lot of wind out there. It's actually not too windy right now. By the way, little tip about the wasteland: if you're going to cook on any sort of propane stove, or this is probably a good day to use a solar oven. Fuck yeah, I love my solar oven. Gonna make that garlic bread. If you're gonna do any sort of cooking, you do it in the goddamn morning when the winds are calm, because once the winds start, they may not stop until the next morning. You know, it'll be a breeze. Sometimes late at night, early morning, it'll be just a calm little breeze. That's nice. But once it gets into full ass wasteland mode, it's just like it's blowing. And by the way, that's another thing for van lifers. If you can do it, a little wind turbine on the back of your RV, you know, something where you can fold it up, put it up, and you're getting constant energy, baby. Charging up your solar generator and all that shit. See, that's what I look at. The reason your solar systems have to be fucking huge is because of your women. Any inconvenience is too much inconvenience for a woman. And the one thing to understand about most women is, no matter how ridiculous it is, it's always about maintaining the perfect mental state. That's better. No matter how bad it is, you must suffer to make sure she maintains the perfect mental state. Sorry, I'm pissing in a jug. Yeah, can you tell I'm a single guy? I'm doing this right now. I make a great gamer. Jug time. So, I can build a system where I got 100 watts going into that deep cycle old school hard system. And that powers the TV, and I can I'll recharge headlamps, accessories. I can recharge. I'm a little finicky about putting my Nintendo Switch on the old system, even though it probably doesn't hurt anything. I still think to myself, I don't think the power is as clean as it would come out of the solar generator. So I'm a little cautious about that, because I don't know. I don't want to fry my Switch, and I doubt it would fry the Switch, by the way. But why take the risk if you don't have to? The Switch literally only takes 4 watts. 4 watts. Like, you hear me there? 4 fucking watts. Like 3 to 4 watts. You turn it down. Part of the reason I have like this black cloth for a curtain, it makes it darker in here. That way you don't need to have the screen up as high. But yeah, with 4 watts, that's nothing when I'm producing like 150 on the 200 watt system with the solar generator. And the biggest energy hog in here, and by the way, you're gonna laugh when you hear how much energy it is my fridge. A normal fridge in a house probably takes 500 to 1,000 watts. 700 probably being the average. This standard, 2-door, fridge where not the, where it's nice stainless steel. All the cold just drops out the minute you open. The best type of fridge, if you're gonna actually do it, is you get a chest freezer, and you adjust the settings on the freezer to where it's a fridge temp. Because if you can get these things where you press a button and it'll lift up racks out of the chest freezer, you'll use just a fraction of power compared to what a normal fridge takes. But the convenience of the open door fridge is nice. My little Bouge RV uses about 25 to 30 on eco mode, and about 40, maybe 50 on max mode. That's not much. And that thing will freeze stuff solid. So, yeah. If I had a 400 watt system for a solar generator with a 2 to 3,000 watt capacity, and I turn off my fridge at night, because why waste the power? I mean, it's already cold in there. It's got the insulation around it. It's got the cover for it and all that. I even wrapped it in emergency blankets. You know, like those space blankets. You know, that way it's even more efficient. You know, like I could probably in one day with 400 watt panel system get enough of a charge to last, God, a week or longer. So you could be parked in like you're shopping in town, and then you could be just under trees and stuff, and you'd be fine. You know, that would probably even include the TV. But like, that's the thing about it. That's how little of power I need to do what I do. That's how little power I need. So you got to really put that in perspective. You really got to put that in perspective when you think about why most people's solar systems are just over the top. Like they'll have a house and they'll have, by the way, I want to point this out. What's nice about an RV, a lot of old, like at least I know old RVs are just practically ready to be built with solar. They're already a DC system. The things that I would change about, and sometimes you have to do it the hard way with old RVs or trailers, where because they got a certain bulb system, and they're made for the old normal bulbs that waste a lot of power versus LED. And sometimes there's probably somebody making bulbs that are LED that fit that, but they're probably charging an arm or leg for them. I had a buddy when he, and this is before solar generators were really, this is way before solar generators became the thing. He was setting up his trailer with just a little bit of solar, and he would go out there to the auto parts store and he'd buy these little LED clusters. And so he just wired in 12-volt LED clusters, which produced way better light, into his old RV system. But you can basically hook up, if you know what, you got to maybe set up a switch and all that crap, but you can set up your RV to be recharged, your RV setup to be recharged off of just a handful of solar panels to run all your lights, all your bullshit. And that is so simple. In that case, because if it's just lighting and you're doing LED, and a few other basics, like maybe a fan or something like that. Oh yeah, man. You could totally just put a panel or two to do that. And then if you wanted to do a solar generator, a separate system, you could just hook up, 4 panels, maybe more, but 4 panels. So we're talking at 100, probably 130. Let's just say 125 for easy numbers. We're talking $500 for all your panels. Then you got probably, let's say, $100 of wiring. And then let's say $700 for a solar generator that holds 2,000 watts or more, has AC, has DC, does everything you want. The only thing I would argue that I would want if I got a bigger solar generator is I want either 2 cigarette lighters or ports that are big enough to do 2 refrigerators. I want 2 freezers. That's what I want. I want 2 freezers when I build the ultimate setup. And then a separate system, an old school hard system that hooks up to the RV. Has like some hardcore batteries. Those will probably cost a little bit of money. 12-volt batteries that hooks up to a couple panels for the lights and the TV. And then propane for cooking, or I'll just use my rocket stove that runs off wood. Solar oven. In fact, I might start packing again my my propane oven. But I'll tell you the truth. There was one year I was down here, and I only used that propane oven once, that whole winter, once I got my solar oven. So, yeah, once you got your decent setup, van life-wise, once you've got your game figured out, basically, how you're doing things, yeah, life is ridiculously cheap, ridiculously easy to deal with. It's just a matter of changing the way you think. It's like this whole thing of the way normies do things, where it's like, It's all a turn dial. That's how most people are. You go to work, turn dial existence. You go to work, you drive your car, you buy a car, you pay for the car, you go to work, you go and do your job, you come home, you know, flip the switch, TV's on, and you turn on the microwave. And that's another thing. That's another test right there. Do you have a big enough solar system, or solar generator, I should say, because 400 watts is a lot of power. If you think about it from this perspective, if I use a air fryer or a microwave is only like 750 watts or less if you can find a smaller one. But like you can find every day while the world runs off AC, 750 watts. There are a lot of solar generators that can do that. The same thing with an air fryer. If you can find a small air fryer, if you're a single person, and you're getting great sun, so you've already got a full charge. So at that point, why not just, use your air fryer? If you can run an air fryer or a microwave, I think you've made it. And if you've got TV, whether it's, I don't really care for satellite myself, but you got airwave TV, you got your Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck or whatever, I fail to see how you're not living just a quality life. The only thing that's really different is I might be using a compost toilet, or hell, out here I just dig a 3-foot deep hole. I was shit in the ground. Use the backwoods bidet. 6 months to a year later, there ain't nothing left. And bathing wise, you just set up one of those 12 by 12 canopies with the walls. Just make sure there's no floor, cut out the floor. And you just set up a little place to stand where you take a bucket bath. And then your cost of living goes from normie cost of living. What are we talking? Anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month for rent. Then you got probably let's say $130 a month for water. Let's say $100 during the summer for power, $200 during the winter for power if you have electric. If you have a wood stove, maybe $50 to $60 for power depending on where you live. If you have a wood stove. You got insurance on your house. You got a lot of little things, a lot of little maintenance. You got taxes too. Then you got, let's say you got to go to work. You got to buy that car. You got to pay for insurance on that new car. New cars have high insurance. I'm just saying, you add it all up, and I can live off just the basic carrying cost of your day-to-day life. And by the way, add up. Here's something you should do mathematically. Just think about it like this, man. I burned my paints. Yeah, that's crazy, man. When you think about driving to work, if you give up 2 hours of your life a day, then you are effectively, literally, so let's just say you make a normal $25 an hour. It used to be $25 an hour is good money. But you're making a normal $25 an hour. Well, let me put this in perspective. You literally just gave away $50 that day to the system. Well, sounds like the local guy's back. There's a guy here that shows up, and he goes up here. He digs gravel for his property, digs gravel out of the defile out there, the wash, and then comes up here, and I just think this is his retirement, and fires off probably 50 to 122 shells. But yeah, he's down the hill over on the other hill over here. There's a good shooting spot over there. But yeah, you add it up. You can buy a cheap piece of land, and like that land up in Washington, $500 a year for the 2 lots for their taxes, and then two HOAs, which I wish I'd only bought 1 lot. There was another lot in that community 4 years ago that I could have got for $15,000, but there was some title lien problem, blah blah blah, and I don't know if the TV was as good as there. It has good sun, I'll tell you that much. I went by there and I looked at how good the sun was, and there's even kind of a seasonal creek, which I actually regret that I didn't buy that place, because that place would have been perfect, because I could have just walked right, instead of having to go and get fresh water over at the well. I could have just walked right over there for just bathing and cleaning my stuff. You know, dog water, I could just walked over to the creek for half the year. And if I was going to live in that area, I would definitely have a wood stove in whatever RV I've got. If I got a slide out, I'd put a wood stove in the slide out. But what I'm getting at with this is that you're talking $60 a month for that property up north. I paid cash for it, so that's all I got to pay between the taxes for the system and then the HOA, and I get a lot of benefits with that HOA. So let me put this in perspective. If I build the ultimate RV and got a little like Ford Maverick or something to pull behind it, and I got my motorcycle on the front, yeah, I could totally live absolutely almost, you know, I could totally live, you know, ridiculously cheap for the rest of my fucking life. We're talking under $5,000 a year. You could make $100,000, even just invest in like the S&P, and you'd be making $10,000 a year off that, and there's gonna be some capital gains. So you work, you know, a few years living as cheap as possible in a truck and whatever situation. Invest when you're young. You got like $300,000-400,000 invested. You're fucking retired by 30. Just go buy a couple pieces of cheap land and get yourself an RV. So that's where I look at the whole like make your own power, figure out some way to get water some way you can efficiently get water. Like I pay $130 a month for water up north. I'm going to close it with this thought here. You know, I sit there and it's like I paid $800 for 6 months of water I shall never drink. And if I could find a decent property manager for that property, it'd be rented out right now. I don't want to deal with having to evict people and all that shit. But I hate paying for utilities, because most of the time when I've lived anywhere, I don't use a ton of water. I ain't trying to have a Scots lawn and, you know, like water. I see people watering there. There's an old lady next door. There'd be times her sprinkler would be on and they just forget that it was on. It'd be running for 24 hours in the same fucking spot. Boy, howdy, tell me why I need to pay $130 for water when somebody else is literally just pissing away thousands of gallons. And by the way, the cost of water per gallon there, for every 1,000 gallons in that town, it's only $1.40 for 1,000 gallons. Think about that, $1.40. The rest of the bill, like say I only use like 1,000 to maybe 2,000 gallons a month. I think 1,000's about what I use, maybe a little more. We're talking like $3 of actual water. The rest of the $127 is minimum fees. That doesn't even include the garbage bill, where that's like an extra $15. I don't see why I should have to be forced into that system. And making your own solar and figuring out some way to do your water. That's why when I say, if you got a community where they've got their own wells, so you don't have to have one, and you can just go fill up at the public well, and it's good and clean and all that. Even, you know, if you want it more clean, get yourself a little filter. If you can do that, fuck paying the system all this extra money. Fuck paying it. And that's why when I look at solar, I look at it as solar or a wind generator. I love it. Any way I can integrate different little systems, I'm down, man. I'm down for that. To where when I get somewhere, I don't need nobody. I'm just fine. But anyhow, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go and adjust the panels and set up my antenna. Kind of get a look at whoever the hell is over on the other hill there. Peace.